Hello and welcome to the Football Hipsters English Breakfast Podcast. My name is Kris and I'll be your host just for a change. And I'm joined by my regular co-host, Mr. Ross Bramble. Good evening to you, Ross.
Good evening, sir.
Here we are once again talking football. It's good to have club football back, isn't it, after that international break and all that?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like you go into a bit of a lull and everything that you know about football seeps out one side of your head.
That's a brilliant way of putting it. Yeah, I could not have put that any better. And they always, is it me, or do they always seem to go on a bit longer every time?
Oh, yeah. It's
12, 14 days. Wow.
Nice to know that the next one's March, so you get a nice long run of games and fixtures now.
Yes, 9 consecutive weeks, I think I'm right in saying. So, happy days. Bring it on. Although at Christmas, I don't know how the hell we're going to do this show. We'll have to work it out nearer the time. Anyway, enough waffle. We're back, and thank you all for tuning in, I should say. And thanks everyone for asking us when we will be back, because we had quite a few people tweet us and message us, or message me indeed, to say, when are you back? We need to talk football. So here we are. Right, Premier League, Ross. We are back in action. We've got one fixture to go, which is an absolute barnstormer, which maybe we'll touch on later on for tomorrow, of course. But let's have a look at the weekend's action. We'll start with Arsenal and Manchester United, because that was probably the standout fixture of the weekend. It was the first game of the weekend. Ended in a 1-1 draw. I'm going to be completely unbiased here and let you tell me your thoughts on this. The only thing I will say is, right off the bat, I'll hold my hand up and say Arsenal were rather fortunate. What was your take on the game?
Well, I hear mixed reviews. I hear that Man United were very good, and then I hear that Arsenal were very bad. I hear that it was Man United's best performance this season. I hear it was kind of meh. I hear that Arsenal were very lucky. But I also hear that Arsenal just took their chances and Man United didn't. So everyone seems to have a different angle on this game. From my perspective, I'd say that it's a pretty good point for Man United, considering how the season started for them. It's not a defeat. That's the biggest thing. And as for Arsenal, as a Southampton fan, we've now played Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and United. We haven't played Spurs yet, but the 5 of the 6 teams that were expected to be in and around the title race. And Arsenal are starting to look to me like the lucky ones, the ones that always get the last-minute goal, even though they probably don't deserve it on the basis of the way the game's gone. You know, you always get one of those in a title race every year, and that seems to be Arsenal this year. And they carried it on again in this game. Very good header from Giroud, by the way, and an excellent cross from Oxlade-Chamberlain, who I'm hoping is getting a decent run in the Arsenal team this year, because I think he's long overdue a decent run in the Arsenal team. So yeah, I hear 1,000 different angles on this one, but overall I'd say it's a pretty good point for both, generally speaking.
Yeah, I'll take it. I agree with you. Apparently, Giroud was 2.8 metres off the ground when he headed that ball, which seems like a hell of a jump, but still. I don't know if that's like from the ground to his head when he was in mid-flight. I can only assume it was, but it's a hell of a header. The only thing I'll have to say to you is, when you say Arsenal took their chances, I'll have to correct you just slightly and say Arsenal took their chance, because it was the only one they created all game long. But no, nevertheless, it's a good point. And for Manchester United, there was a penalty call that wasn't given. Again, taking my Arsenal hat off, I didn't think it was. I can see sort of where people are coming from who think it is, but I felt like was it Valencia? I think he was going down before Monreal crossed his path, and a very good goal from Juan Mata. Really good finish, that, to be fair. Really, really good slide rule finish from a good piece of wing play. And as you rightly say, I think both sides will. I think Arsenal will be the happier of the two, given the fact that they were quite poor on the day. But Man United maybe can take some props for the fact that they put in a proper performance this week, and they'll be now looking to their game with, I think it's Feyenoord, isn't it, Old Trafford this week, which obviously will dictate whether they get through in their next Europa League tie. So a draw to start us off for the weekend. That moved us into the Saturday fixtures, and down at Selhurst Park. 2 interesting things out of this game. There's a lesser spotted Yaya Toure made his way onto the pitch. Not just made his way onto the pitch, but also made his way onto the score sheet twice. I think, to be honest, Ross, even you and I could have scored his second goal. But are you surprised how quickly this sort of love affair all of a sudden has been rekindled with Pep Guardiola?
Kind of, but at the same time, I wouldn't say that it's been rekindled yet. I think it was a marriage of convenience this weekend. Torre needed to prove, on his perhaps one and only chance, if it had gone wrong, that he could be a part of Pep's plans, and he certainly did. I thought his first goal was pretty good, although you have to pinpoint mistakes in Palace's defending near the start, overplaying it at the back. But the strike is excellent quality, and the second goal, like I say, is very simple. Palace switching off at a corner, and how no one's tracking Yaya Toure is beyond me, because you can't miss him. But yeah, I mean, kind of is my answer to the Toure thing. It doesn't surprise me that he took his chance. It wouldn't surprise me now if he gets a decent run in the team, at least until he screws it up again. But yeah, to see him come back into the fold when the team sheets were announced was a bit of a surprise. But to see him take advantage of it, no, that wasn't too much of a shock to me. Whatever you think of Yaya Toure, he's a damn good footballer, and I think after everything he's been through the past 6 or 7 months with Pep and Manchester City, I think that the one chance he got, he knew he had to take it, and he certainly had the quality to.
Yeah, it was very sort of decent performance from him, having been out in the cold for so long. And as you say, you just wonder if his agent can keep quiet enough to give him a prolonged run in this side. He's I've always been a little bit always been a bit controversial in my views on Yaya Toure. I think he's hugely overrated in that. He's got this ability, and he just doesn't seem to be bothered to use it half the time. And
well, he certainly shouldn't be in the African Player of the Year nomination this year, should he?
No.
That's a joke that he's on that list.
Or indeed having another birthday cake arrived. Yeah, that's he does strike me as a bit of an odd character, but nevertheless, key victory for Manchester City, and that puts them right back up in this ever-changing top four sort of title race position. They're nestling quite nicely up towards the top once again. But we'll turn our attention to the other side involved in this, and the cult of Pardew. Good old Alan Pardew and his Crystal Palace side. It's happening again, isn't it? I think it's fair to say. You've got some rather interesting stats on Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I was scrolling through Twitter before we kicked off this pod, and the BBC coincidentally posted a little like leaderboard, like the relegation zone, as it were, of the worst performing teams of 2016. And the teams mentioned on this graph are Rotherham, MK Dons, Aston Villa, Dagenham and Redbridge, and York City. And at the bottom, out of all 92 teams in the English football divisions, Crystal Palace have been the worst performing side of 2016, which puts them below Dagenham, Redbridge and York City, who were both relegated earlier on this year to the conference. That is a staggering statistic. I would never have guessed Palace were that far down. They averaged 0.71 points per game, which is 0.006 less than York City did, and they were relegated from the Football League. 22 points in 31 games played. That is a pretty shocking statistic for Crystal Palace, but we say often enough on this show that he does this, goes and runs with 5 defeats, and then he wins 5. And they got Swansea next week, so I fully expect them to win that and then to go on another run. But that statistic is horrific, and I would not have put Palace down as that bad so far this year.
No, it's quite the statement. Do you think he's under pressure there? I mean, obviously he's under pressure because he wants to win football matches. But do you sort of get the impression that there could be a change if this carries on? Because it's not coincidence anymore, is it? They go on these runs, they get some results, and then it just all falls apart. And if you look at some of the signings, some of them are not performing. Some of the ones that you look at, Johan Cabaye, it's horribly off form. If Benteke doesn't score, but it seems not many others do. I mean, it's got to be serious questions asked of him from the management above him now, surely. Yeah,
well, I think we've seen better managers with better records than him get sacked this year and this season alone. So, yes, if you look at that dry statistic, then yeah, you'd certainly question it. But at the same time, it's a shock to see them in that poor form across 2016. I don't think if you'd asked many people beforehand, who's been the worst team statistically so far this year, I don't think they would have said Crystal Palace. They probably would have pointed to someone in one of the lower leagues, or maybe even had a look at Aston Villa. So I think he's almost not going to be under as much pressure because you just don't associate it with Palace right now. Because, like we say, they do go on these undefeated streaks where they just look absolutely fantastic, and that seems to gloss over some of the negative. I mean, you've been saying for most of the year that Palace are in relegation problems, and I've always said, yeah, but they'll turn it around. I just never really worry about them. But suddenly, that statistics made me think, wow, yeah, maybe they really are in relegation troubles this year. So maybe he's just living off the back of those good runs. Maybe that's enough to placate people and make them forget about the bad ones. But that statistic is shocking.
It is, yeah, it is, and yeah, they may well stay up, or they may well be in a fight. But I think if they do stay up, I don't think it will be because they've been brilliant for a period of time. I think it will be because there are worse sides in the Premier League than them.
Well, it's the same with any relegation fight. You've only got to be better than three others, and I certainly think there are three others. The three that are currently in the relegation zone, I think, are far worse than Palace are as a team.
Yeah, agreed. Let's have a look. Let's have a look down there at the relegation zone before we come back up to the top again in a second, because we had Everton played host to Swansea. It's more dropped points for Everton, who are on a little bit of a wobble at the moment, but they did get out of jail with a very late Seamus Coleman, equaliser. Very good header, actually, to be fair. Really, really good header that. They missed their chances. And Gylfi Sigurdsson had seemingly got the points for Swansea until that late leveller. What do you make of Swansea? Because obviously the Bob Bradley regime is slowly kind of you can see green shoots, or at least I can, I think, but it's happening slowly, very slowly. But I mean, I don't know. Are they in a position where you think they can build on performances like this? Because a point at Everton when your side's struggling, surely that's got to be a point gained. But in the circumstances, are they going to look at it and think, we really should have won that game?
Yeah, I think that's the key point. Is before kickoff, if he said 1-1 draw with Everton away, they would have said absolutely, we'll take that. But then when you actually watch the game, Everton were well out of it for most of the first half and then most of the second half. They were just so off colour. For Swansea, that would have been a massive 3 points, and it really would have lifted the club. I think the last-minute equaliser is a hammer blow. I think for Everton, it would have been quite embarrassing to have been controlled and dominated by a team like Swansea and then lost it. So for them, it's a massive saving grace. But I think I heard that before kick-off, when the teams were announced, when the Swansea team was announced, I think there was 8 changes to the Swansea team. There were groans from the away fans, because they're just sick and tired of Bob Bradley chopping and changing and bringing out some of the best players and putting in untested ones and trying new formulas in the middle of a Premier League season. So I get a sense that there's discontent among the Swansea fans, but this was always a risky appointment. This was always one that was going to take time if you wanted to see it succeed. So I'm not seeing tremendous amount of development yet myself, but I am seeing a manager that is desperately trying to find the right balance to turn them around, and that point in that performance was certainly a good sign.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those that people, yes, they are not keen on so many changes, but I guess that my immediate retort to that would be, well, what you were doing before wasn't working, so why not experiment a bit, I guess. But yeah, it is a tough one. And if you're going to experiment, maybe experiment in a game where you aren't necessarily expected to get too much from it. And if you do get a point out of it, then there's got to be a point gained. So yeah, we'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on Swansea, as we have done for the past few weeks. But we'll also look at the other teams down the bottom. And the first 6-pointer of the season, probably, it sounds silly to say that in November, but still, when you look at Sunderland and Hull, you'd have to say this was a 6-pointer, and Sunderland got the victory. And to be perfectly honest, they battered Hull, didn't they? Absolutely took them apart. And it's 2 wins on the spin now, 3-0 no less, so 3 goals as well. Whatever next, is this a sign that David Moyes has finally got something going?
No. I know that there's a temptation on everyone's part to see a good run of form coming together and think, all right, here we go. You get swept up in negative or positive movements. So I understand the idea now that people are saying, well, maybe Swansea, that Sunderland are turning it around. No, I'm sorry, that they're still an awful starting 11. A couple of weeks back we played them in the cup, and I got to go watch them play down at St Mary's. And okay, they made a couple of changes, but that was still a pretty much full strength side they were playing that week, and they were awful. They were dreadful. And then you watched them that weekend, and they were awful there. And we both sat there on that pod that weekend, and we both said, yeah, from what we've seen of them this weekend, they're going down in 20th position. They've been woeful. Now, against Bournemouth, the win they got was ridiculous, and Bournemouth should have scored at least a couple more goals in that game. Only won by a penalty in that game, and Inichibe obviously was brilliant in his hold-up play, etc. But Bournemouth more than deserved something from that game, and Sunderland were very lucky to leave it with 3 points. And this one, Hull are the only team that are doing worse than Sunderland at the moment, and they were awful again, Hull. Against Southampton, they were absolutely dreadful for the first half, and then they managed to get 2 very good quality goals and held on. In this one, they just couldn't get anywhere near the Sunderland half. They didn't create many good chances, and Sunderland just have better finishes in Defoe and Inichibe, who's finally, after about 10 years of playing football, getting some good form. So, no, I'm sorry. It's a great result, and I hope Sunderland fans are enjoying the mini run. But this is, for me, it's just circumstantial. I don't see this as anything that can be maintained for too much longer, because they've got Liverpool next week for a start, and if they play anywhere near as badly as they did against Bournemouth or against Hull at times, then Liverpool are going to make mincemeat out of them.
It's hard to disagree. Yeah, it's hard to disagree. I mean, I suppose the only thing you could say is if they're going to win games, these are the games they have to win, because if they'd have lost this, I mean, I dread to think what the confidence level would have been like. But as you rightly say, I think it's a little bit of a false dawn. We shall see. Like you say, next week's is the test. If they can take this form on.
But again, you've only got to be better than 3 others. If they can do that a couple more times, then great, because there are teams that will be down there near the end of the season that they'll be able to get to. But no, I don't see this as a bright turnaround for Moyes or for Sunderland. I think he's there because they know that even if they do go down, they've got a manager they can build with.
Yep, agreed. The only other side I want to touch on down the bottom end this week is West Ham, because they had the tea time kickoff against Spurs in a game that they've had quite a good record against Spurs, particularly at White Hart Lane in recent seasons, and they rocked up at this game and they led twice in this game, but somehow managed to lose the game by 3-2, having led, I believe it was up to, was it the 89th minute? They were leading 2-1 and then shipped 2 goals to Harry Kane in the last minute, and also had Winston Reid sent off. Is it too big a statement to say that Slaven Bilic is on very, very thin ice right now? Because that squad is not performing and his tactics are not working. And you can only blame a stadium for so long. So is he under pressure? What do you think is going wrong there?
I have no idea what's going wrong there. I think Tom mentioned it a couple of weeks on Twitter. I think I mentioned it as well a couple of weeks ago on this pod, that Tom sent out a tweet that read something on the lines of West Ham are now in the situation they're in because the squad's no longer playing for the Euros. And I agree with that. This squad looks a shadow of itself from last year, and it's mainly because there's a distinct lack of effort, a lack of spark. Paul Merson was saying on Soccer Saturday that if Payet doesn't turn up, then West Ham don't turn up, and he'd move him out so that West Ham can start, figuring out a way to win without Payet. Get 30 million for him or whatever you can in January, and then start rebuilding the team and make them a much more cohesive unit. And I would almost start recommending that, because I'm in the same boat. Unless Payet's performing, then West Ham don't seem to be performing, which is a huge problem. Antonio, again, with a good goal, has scored all of his goals this season with his head, which is a bizarre statistic, but it's still going. He's got 6 goals or something in and around that number, and even then you can't say he's been brilliant this year. Just everywhere seems to be a lack of intensity from them. And to blow a lead like they did against Tottenham, so late in the game is a shocker. So I have no idea what is wrong with West Ham. Difficult to blame this one on the stadium because they weren't in it. So there's a lot that goes into where and why West Ham are where they are, but to pinpoint just one, I think is a pretty impossible at this point.
Yeah, it's a very, very strange set of circumstances, and as you say, as Tom's tweet said as well, I also agree with that. It does seem like players have, for whatever reason, just switched off, and I don't think they'll get that sort of money for Payet this year.
Oh no, he's 29 now.
Yeah, I think he is
in around that ballpark.
Yes.
So if they want to sell him on, which I don't think they would want to, I think it would be Payet's decision at this point. But if they did, I'm not seeing a lot of money being spent on him. They'll probably hold out for a lot of money, but it would be based purely on last season, because this season, every time he steps up for a free kick, you don't think it's going in anymore. Whereas last season you thought, right, no matter what distance, he's going to have a good chance here. So, yeah, interesting one with Payet, but he's already made sounds that he might be looking elsewhere. But yeah, I think it would almost be a blessing if he were to be out of the starting 11 for a little while.
Agreed, yeah, and everyone laughed at me when I said last year that I basically said, let's see him do it next season, and everyone laughed at me. Oh, you're talking rubbish. I've seen this before. When he was at Marseille, had an absolutely stunning 6 months, and then he would go completely missing for 6 months. And yeah, told you so. That's all I'll say. But let's move on to Spurs very quickly, because they've found this result just at the right time, because they've got a massive week ahead of them. I don't know if you've seen their fixtures upcoming, but of course they've got the Monaco trip in midweek. And then this time next week they face Chelsea, or Saturday evening they face Chelsea away from home, and you've got to think that's going to be a big test of their unbeaten start. I can't remember the last time his side was unbeaten after this many games and fifth. It's bizarre, but they were quietly impressive yesterday. Good show of character as well to come back from that 2-1 down position. Yeah,
much in the same boat. Other thing I'd add to it is shout out to Pochettino for playing Harry Winks. I don't think there's enough managers near the top end of the table that are brave enough to put in the kids sometimes, and I think Winks. I don't think Winks is a brilliant player. I don't think he's kind of the calibre that Pochettino's brought through before, but I certainly think he's good enough for the first team, and he certainly proved it with his goal. And it was really nice to see Winks immediately going over to Pochettino to celebrate, and the whole team going over to celebrate with them. It shows the kind of club that he's turned Tottenham into, or at least the team that he's turned Tottenham into. So yeah, I was quietly impressed with Tottenham, as I have been since the start of the season. It's strange to see them in fifth, considering they're still unbeaten, but that Chelsea game is going to be a big test of that, because I think Chelsea are the best team I've seen so far this campaign. Yeah, we will definitely touch on them in a minute, because again, it's one of those that I sort of saw coming, and it seems to be bearing fruit. So we'll touch on their game today in a second. A couple of quick run through a couple of quick results as well. Stoke losing at home to Bournemouth. Really good result that for Bournemouth, who are once again quietly creeping up that table, up to ninth now. Nathan Ake with the unlikely scorer. Anyone that had him on their coupon has done well this weekend. He was the goal scorer and the winning goal scorer. Interesting decision or non-decision in that game when Ryan Shawcross, he does what Ryan Shawcross does, doesn't he? Not given for probably the most blatant penalty that there ever was. Would that be a fair statement? Yeah, I was watching the Championship goals and instance back earlier today, and there was some blatantly obvious Championship decisions that were given this weekend. And then I thought back to the Shawcross one from last night and just thought, how is that any different from some of these other ones? It's blatant. It's absolutely blatant, and it's a ridiculous decision that it's not been given. But then again, Shawcross seems to get away with quite a few of those, so it doesn't ultimately surprise me that he managed to get away with it of all people. No, he does have a little bit of a habit, doesn't he? Watford 2, Leicester 1. Good result for Watford, that, having been absolutely trounced by Liverpool before the international break. Shows good strength of character for them to come back. Roberto Pereira is starting to look a very good bit of business, as is Nordin Amrabat for Watford. They are doing the business. No goal for Troy Deeney, who's still waiting. Was it his 200th goal league career? I think it is. Yeah, still waiting. Just a very brief one on Leicester. Would you be a bit worried if you were a Leicester fan? Because, Ranieri keeps saying the right things, and, God bless him, we still love Claudio, but they are, as the facts say, 2 points above the relegation zone now. It's a bit of an alarming form, isn't it? That they could go away and win in the Champions League all they like, but if they suddenly are in a relegation fight, it's not going to end well, is it? Well, no, but I suppose it's a trade-off, and it's up to the fans to decide whether they like that or not. If I was a Leicester fan and I was seeing my club win the league 1 year and then hitting awful form and drifting closer to a relegation battle they should be nowhere near, but doing well in the Champions League, I'd still be saying, but look, the water's coming in, someone plug it. Whereas Leicester fans may be rather enjoying the Champions League. It's the same with Wigan when they won the FA Cup a couple of seasons back. They won the FA Cup but got relegated, and all the Wigan fans said they were happy with that. They were proud to have won the FA Cup, and it didn't matter that it came at the expense of their Premier League position. So it's not for me to decide whether or not it's good or bad for Leicester. It's up to their fans. But if I was a Leicester fan, then yeah, I'd be more than worried about the league form rather than the Champions League myself, because the Champions League is 1 year. The Premier League is year in, year out. That's what happens when you go back home. So I would always prioritise the league. But that's just me. Like I say, that's for Leicester fans to decide.
Yeah, I'd love to get a Leicester fan on at some point and chat to us about that. So I'll have to work on that because I'm intrigued to see how their fans are this season compared to last. It must be a real sort of contrast of emotions between European action and Premier League. So I'll have to work on that. Other results on the Saturday. Do you want to briefly touch on your 0-0 draw with Liverpool? Saints 0, Liverpool 0. It seemed like. Well, there is one thing we should bring up on this, isn't there? Because something wound you up yesterday.
Yeah, this wasn't just Match of the Day, by the way. That there's a lot of news outlets running this over the weekend. That somehow Liverpool couldn't score against us because they've been doing a lot of international travelling this week, which really did wind me up. Because if you look at the Southampton team as well, the Southampton team had Forster and Bertrand go off on England duty and both come back injured. Højbjerg went on international duty and came back injured. Font and Van Dijk were out on international duty. Davis was on international duty. Boufal was on international duty. And so was Nathan Redmond for the under-23s. They were all playing in that game, and we got a 0-0 with the highest scoring team in the Premier League. It seems ridiculous to me that it's all because Liverpool were travelling this weekend. That's because they couldn't score against little old Southampton. No, both of us had long weeks, and frankly, Southampton should be applauded for the fact that even now, at this point in the year, when we've got 9 games in 30 days coming up, we're still swinging for the fences and keeping clean sheets with Liverpool. It seemed like we were just being swept under the rug on the weekend. As for the game, Liverpool were very good. Well, you will be told by everyone that they lacked a cutting edge and they did miss some very good chances, but at the same time they were reduced to very few. Southampton were very good defensively, which is all I wanted to see. All I wanted to see was a clean sheet. The rest of the result didn't really matter to me. Clean sheet was the main thing. I know Jose Font was very upset with the way that we were playing going forward and was annoyed that we weren't keeping the ball long enough and didn't create many good chances. The only one we had was Austin's header. But for me, a point at home against a team like Liverpool, which is a massive game because they're so dangerous all over the field and because they have so many ex-players and because we've got a bit of a recent history with them now. It's a big fixture these days, so I'm more than happy with the point. I thought it was a very good performance. Liverpool will be disappointed that they didn't get anything from it, but if I hear anyone else blaming the fact that Mane and Firmino were travelling Europe on the weekend, I'm going to go mad because you're just completely undercutting everything that Southampton have done so far this season as well. So, yeah, there you go. That's my synopsis of that game.
I like it, rant over, but I agree. I mean, it is something that often gets overlooked when one club is playing another club, and one club happens to be a bigger club, so to speak. So, no, well said, and just from an outsider, I know you will know this because you watch him every week, but Virgil van Dijk is getting better and better and better, I think. And people bang on about Jan Vertonghen and Laurent Koscielny and Vincent Kompany for some strange reason. I think Van Dijk is easily one of the best defenders in the Premier League right now, and
he's one of the best in the world.
Yeah,
I really do think he's that highly. And I've said it before. I think he'll go to Barcelona at some point because he's got everything he needs to play for Barcelona, and he's a very Barcelona player. Good technically, good with his feet, good with his head. Sees the game very well, very quick, very strong, good leader. He's got everything he needs, absolutely everything he needs. And if there are any young kids that want to be defenders when they grow up, it's Van Dijk they're looking to. I'm a massive fan of Alderweireld, and I was really proud to have him at Southampton for the years that we had him. But to have Van Dijk take his place now, it's absolutely incredible to see him develop and what a player he's becoming. I hope we can keep on to him for a few years longer. I know he's got a very strong affinity with the club as well now. But he will probably be our highest sold player if he ever does move. Because if John Stones is 30 million or whatever he was, then Van Dijk is double that because he's already the finished article. So yeah, can't speak high enough of him. But frankly, I'd rather keep him quiet so that no one comes knocking. But I have a funny feeling we'll be feeling a few bids over the summer.
Yes, I think you might be right. But very impressive showing from him. And finally, for the weekend Premier League wise, a very good showing from Chelsea once again. 6 straight wins, haven't conceded 1 goal in all that period of time. As an Arsenal fan, I'm delighted that we played them when we did because I wouldn't fancy playing them right now. they're just going from strength to strength. Diego Costa got the winner at I was going to say at the Riverside. Then, crikey, oh, no, it is the Riverside, isn't it? I think
Sorry,
so.
I was reading a tweet you've just tagged me in, so I was a little
I,
distracted while you were talking then.
I do apologise. Middlesbrough Stadium. It is the Riverside Stadium
Yes,
still.
it is the
Yes, it
Riverside.
is. I don't know why I didn't think that was right anymore. I had
It's because
Riverside.
every single club has been rebranded. You know, I still think of it
Yes.
as the Britannia, but it's now the Bet365, isn't it? So
I still remember when the Riverside was the Cellnet Stadium. Remember that?
I think
Crikey.
it was York that was the Kit Kat
Kit Kat Crescent.
Kit Kat Crescent. I think that was York.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bizarre.
And you've got the was it the McCain Stadium as well?
Oh yeah, you
I'm
got the
sure.
Wham Stadium now.
Wham Stadium. Yeah.
There's the Oil something Stadium. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's hundreds of them. So yeah, I don't blame you for mixing up the Riverside with something else.
And our very own Danny had the Sweetman Arena, which was his Peterborough side on Championship Manager back in the day.
Wow.
So he played the game for so long they named the stadium after him. So that's a fun fact, boys and girls. Anyway, back to Chelsea. Yeah, so a 1-0 victory. They are top of the pile as we speak. We'll do the table in a second, but they are ever so slightly getting scarier and scarier by the week, I think. As I say, very good performance again. They've shut up shop. They're getting goals. They're getting victories. And say 6 straight wins, a point clear at the top of the table now. He's got something right, Conte, hasn't he?
Yeah, and it's your fault. You pissed them off ever
Sorry.
since they've been brilliant. Yeah, I can't speak high enough of what Chelsea do at the moment. They are the best team in this division so far, and they are exciting to watch. They are always engaging. It's always good fun to listen to Conte. It's always good fun to watch him. And it's not often that I think Chelsea become liked by the majority of other teams in the Premier League. You know, the top 4 or 5 always have it in for each other. That's fine. But the feeling I get now from the outside is that other teams are starting to look at Chelsea and go, yeah, they're quite a fun club. You know, they're good to watch. They're enjoyable. Even Diego Costa's not being a son of a something anymore. You know, they just seem like a happy-go-lucky club all of a sudden. So, yeah, I think they're really engaging to watch. I think they completely deserve to be top of the pile this weekend. 9 goals conceded is a pretty good record considering that's all in like the first 8 games of the season before they went on this clean sheet run. So very, very impressive. Hazard back on form. Even Chalabar and Moses are getting in on the act. So yeah, I can't speak high enough of them. I think they've been brilliant. And although start of the season, my prediction they were going to win the league looked a bit wobbly, suddenly I'm feeling a bit more confident about it.
Yeah, same. So yeah, that's the one prediction we both called, wasn't it, together? So yeah, I of course I hope I'm wrong, being a Gooner, but it's hard to argue at the moment. Certainly if they carry on this form anyway, which has been very, very impressive. The final game of the weekend is tomorrow. As I said at the start of the show, it's a humdinger. No offence, but West Brom and Burnley fans, I think you'll forgive me when I say it's not exactly a fixture that leaps off the page when you look at it. But then I said the same about Swansea Stoke a few weeks ago, and I also said I bet it's a thriller, and it was. So do you foresee there being? Is this going to be another sort of balls out performance from both and lots of action and excitement, or do you think it's going to be a little bit of a dull one for Monday night?
I don't think excitement's the right word. I think there'll be goals because I think this is a fixture that both teams are really going to want to win. Burnley normally sit back and defend, and they're going to have to in this one. Don't get me wrong, but I think they'll see opportunity to spring on West Brom as well. So I think there will be goals in it. As much as that may surprise some other people, it could be just the worst 0-0 you'll ever see in your entire life. Or if I was going to predict it, I'd say a 2-1 to Burnley in and around that kind of range. So no, I wouldn't expect it to be a catch as catch can classic, if I can borrow a wrestling phrase. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think it's mainly by reputation that game has 0-0 written all over it. Yeah,
it's an interesting one. Yeah, Sada Barahino also putting out a statement this evening. I don't know if you've seen this.
Yes,
but,
I did read that, yeah.
He's essentially saying that he's had a chat with Tony Pulis, that he's been on this conditioning training camp in France to sort out his weight. He said he was a player that lacked confidence and belief in himself, and it's hit him hard. He's been depressed and struggled for focus. All strikes a little bit of, we've heard this before, do you not think? A little bit?
A little bit, but I still have faith in him. I don't like to cry wolf when people come out and speak like that, because it takes a lot to speak candidly about it, and I don't think he's got any reason to lie. At the same time, he's done a lot wrong at West Brom. He has been childish, he has been petulant, and he has to knuckle down and get playing again. And I think the time I will really get behind him is when he signs a new deal at West Brom, even if it's just for another year. That's when I'll say, right, I'm now behind him and I want to see him do well. Until then, I'm still a little bit sceptical. I still get the feeling that he's thrown his toys over the past year. Things went wrong. Obviously, that spiraled and caused this, that, and the other. And I wouldn't want to make light of any of that, but I'm still a little cautious. Maybe it was agent play gone wrong. But yeah, if he signs a new West Brom deal, even if it's just for a year, I'm fully behind him and I wish him all the best.
Fair enough. Yes, just got a little whiff of John Bostock, David Bentley, Ravel Morrison kind of about it. I feel like he needs a move, but I don't know where and I don't know to whom. I certainly don't think a move to London will help him. So, Pardew, I wouldn't bother with that one personally, but you know he will. But we will we'll of course be tuned to that one tomorrow and see what happens there. We'll run down the table then. Chelsea, as I said before, are top of the table, 28 points from their 12 played, 18 goal difference. They are a point clear of both Liverpool and Manchester City, second and third respectively, on 27 points. Arsenal are fourth with 25 points. Spurs just a point behind on fifth, 24. Then you've got a bit of a gap, quite a big gap actually, 5 points to Manchester United in 6 on 19. Everton, Watford, Bournemouth and Southampton make up the top 10. Down at the bottom, Swansea now bottom of the table, 6 points. Sunderland a little jump to 8 points. They are second bottom. Hull complete the relegation scrap, which you've then got 3 clubs on 11 points. West Ham 17th, Palace 16th and Middlesbrough 15th, with Leicester, Stoke, West Brom and Burnley reading up from 14th to 11th. That's where we stand at the moment. Diego Costa is the league's leading goal scorer with 10 goals. Sergio Aguero and Jermaine Defoe sniffing at his heels, as are Eden Hazard and Romelu Lukaku. Mikel Antonio, highest scoring player for West Ham, 6 goals, right up there as well. In terms of assists, it's always interesting. Kevin De Bruyne still leads with 7, 5 for Felipe Coutinho, Adam Lallana on 5. Nemanja Matic is a name I didn't expect to see in that list, also with 5, as has Pedro. Having a look at the fixtures we'll have to dissect next week, Ross, I don't know if any of these you fancy. We've got Burnley, Manchester City is the midday 30 kickoff next Saturday. Hull entertain West Brom. That's quite a scrappy one by the looks of it. Leicester, they've got to be looking to get a win as they face Middlesbrough at home. Liverpool, as you mentioned earlier, face Sunderland. Swansea entertain Palace. Crikey, that's all of a sudden that's got a lot on it. Chelsea, Spurs, the London derby at tea time. Watford, Stoke is a 12 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. Arsenal, Bournemouth is the 2:15. Manchester United, West Ham is the 4:30, as is Southampton, Everton, which of course, Big Ronald is coming back. That'll be an interesting reception. Just looking at those fixtures, Swansea Palace, is that the one that jumps out at you? It's certainly the one that gets my attention.
Yeah, Swansea Palace, Chelsea Spurs, and not to be biased, but Southampton Everton. I think are the biggest 3 from next week. Although I almost fancy Burnley to get something off Man City, but that may change during the week.
Oh, you heard it here first, boys and girls. If you are a bettor, then put a couple of quid on that. Only a couple of quid. We don't want to cost people their houses or anything. But
I haven't won a bet all season, so don't.
Don't do it. Okay, right. Let's move our attention then into the Championship, and it is time for your whistle-stop tour of the EFL and the Championships weekend. So I shall hand it over to you. What has been going on this weekend?
Well, we're going to start with a bit of a sob story from League Two. We mentioned on our EFL pod that Plymouth were in prime position for the playoffs and promotion, and I mentioned that the only downside to it is the fact that Carlisle are right behind them and no one wants to take that trip. Well, this weekend, Carlisle hosted Exeter City. Now, that's a mammoth journey as well. Exeter City, as we've been saying the past couple of weeks, are in real problems at the bottom end of League Two. They were in the relegation zone or just outside the relegation zone, I should say, before this weekend started. Carlisle actually lost their first game of the season last weekend, I believe, to Newport County, of all teams. They were bottom at the time. So it was a kind of a bit hit and miss. Maybe Carlisle will come out of the traps, maybe Exeter will be able to nab something, who knows. 150 Exeter fans went all the way up to Carlisle to watch it. They were 2-1 up until the final few minutes, when in the 89th minute and then in the 90th minute, Carlisle scored 2 goals and won it 3-2. Amazing end to that game, but the poor old Exeter fans, that's a heck of a way to go to get that kind of result. Absolutely staggering turnaround so late in the game. Those points could have meant so much, but they now put Exeter City bottom, which is hugely concerning for both you and I, because I think we both enjoyed Paul Tisdale and his amazing sense of style. So yeah, that's easily the standout fixture from the weekend in League Two. While we're in League Two, though, Doncaster Rovers 2-1 win over Hartlepool United puts them back up into the top 3, keeps the pressure on Carlisle and Plymouth. Plymouth themselves, probably the shock of the weekend in League Two, losing 3-0 to Grimsby Town at home. Amazing result for Grimsby Town, now under the tutelage of Marcus Bignot. I'm told it's Bignot, not Bignot, but whichever you prefer, really. Yeovil Town 2-1 winners over Colchester United. That puts Colchester into the bottom 2 as well, which does surprise me, because I always think of Colchester as a League One side, maybe even Championship side, but they are in danger now of slipping out of the Football League altogether this season. So big result down at the bottom. The only other one that I would point out from this weekend, actually no, there's 2. The other one is Mansfield Town. They won 3-1 against Crawley Town. Now the reason that's a big result is because that's Steve Evans' first game in charge for Mansfield against his former club in Crawley, and a 3-1 win is a fantastic result for them. The other one is Cheltenham Town. They got a 1-1 draw with Portsmouth. The reason I wanted to pick that one out was not so much because of the result, but because the Cheltenham Town fans have recently raised £55,000 to buy them a new scoreboard. So excellent work from them, and it even got to record a couple of goals for them. So a great weekend's outing for Cheltenham Town and their new scoreboard. League One. Now, I think the biggest story from League One is actually a little bit depressing as well. Bury. Now, Bury have been in absolutely dreadful form, and if you've been following the news this week, then David Flitcroft was sacked in midweek after they lost 5-0 to AFC Wimbledon in the FA Cup. This weekend they played AFC Wimbledon again and lost 5-1. So that's 10 goals AFC Wimbledon have put past Bury in the same week. Absolutely amazing stat, but Bury just can't seem to buy a win at the moment. That's an absolutely devastating week for them. Bolton Wanderers 2-0 win over Millwall puts them right back into the title hunt. I know they kind of slipped recently. Some very good teams up in the title hunt this year, and Bolton need to be on top form to keep up with them. So the opening goal actually is from Josh Vella. If you haven't seen that goal, that's a bloody good goal. Very good improvisation on his part. Charlton Athletic, they sacked Russell Slade in midweek. They won 2-0 at home to Port Vale, so a good start for them post Russell Slade. Peterborough United, last minute winner over Northampton Town. Oxford United were apparently in a relegation scrap, but they won 4-1 at home to Coventry City, and the problems just keep mounting for Coventry City with even more protests being planned. They are slipping once again back into a relegation fight, as are the MK Dons, who couldn't beat Bristol Rovers on the weekend. They drew 0-0, which is a relatively good result. The MK Dons could be naming Steven Gerrard as their new manager tomorrow. He's going to be deciding whether or not he's taking the job on Monday. So this time next week we will know if Steven Gerrard is a player or a manager. Other result I would pick out from this week in the EFL, or the League One I should say, is Walsall 1, Gillingham 2. The reason I picked that out is because Walsall's goal scorer was Jason McCarthy, who's on loan from Southampton, I have huge hopes for, and the winner for Gillingham was scored by J. Emmanuel Thomas, of all people. So there you are, if you ever wondered where he'd got to. Up into the Championship then. Busy weekend in the Championship. We had Brighton Hove Albion versus Aston Villa on the Friday. 1-1 result there. Good point, I think, for both sides, considering both in relatively good form recently, so that's probably a point they'll be happy with. Barnsley 0, Wigan 0 is a bit of a disappointment for Wigan. They would have been looking to have beaten Barnsley. They need to be dragging Barnsley down at the relegation scrap, but they couldn't find a way to do it. Blackburn 3-2 winners over Brentford was a bit of a shocking result. I see Blackburn turning a corner now, and now that Sam Gallagher is finding form, they seem to be a much more dangerous team to come up against, but I didn't think they beat Brentford, so that's a bit of a shocking result for me. I think the shocking result for the neutrals would either be at Queen's Park Rangers or at Cardiff. Cardiff beat Huddersfield Town by 3-2. Two cracking goals from Huddersfield Town in that game. One was a very nice team goal, and the other was a great solo effort from Billing. But Cardiff 3-2 winners. Huddersfield seem to be slowly shrinking down the table, and their points gap now into the top 2, I believe, is up to 6 points. So their season is changing rapidly. The other surprise, like I say, was Queen's Park Rangers. They hosted Norwich in Ian Holloway's first game back in charge. They managed to win 2-1. Now that's a massive result for both clubs. Norwich, as we know, have been in really poor form lately, but I still expected them to get something out of that game. They were handicapped after 2 minutes because Martin Olsen decided to handball on the line, but Queen's Park Rangers then stepped up and missed that penalty, but still went on to win by 2-1. Speaking of missed penalties, it takes us to Derby County. They won 3-0 against Rotherham United, which is a great result for them, but Tom Ince scored 2 goals and missed 2 penalties. To be fair to him, the first penalty that he missed came back and he managed to turn it in for his first goal, but mixed day, 2 goals and 2 missed penalties. Could have been a very easy hat-trick for them. Reading 3-0 over Burton Albion, that puts Burton back into some relegation trouble, but for Reading that's a massive result. That puts them 4 points off of Brighton in second place now. They've very quietly gone about their business and they're up to third now. And like the Beacons, Nottingham Forest kept a clean sheet at long last. Sombolonga with a double. Nice to see him back fully fit and scoring goals again for Nottingham Forest, because I think he's a player that could be playing at Premier League level if he gets a decent run. He's very strong, very quick, and a very good finisher. So massive result for Nottingham Forest, who were very quickly sinking down this table, which, as we know, can change very quickly as weeks go by. And then Sunday we had Leeds United hosting Newcastle United. Now I managed to miss this one, but I did see Robert Green's howler, where he spills a ball that was kicked from about, 30 yards maybe, and drops it right down to Dwight Gale, who is the last person in the world you want to drop a ball to. Interesting stat there, and the stat we're going to end on this week is that is the 20th mistake that Robert Green has made since 2012 that has led directly to a goal.
Ouch. Well, I did watch that game, and I can confirm it was a howler. And I can also confirm Dwight Gale is exactly the wrong person to drop it to. You're absolutely right. 2 very good poachers' goals. Leeds huffed and puffed, but Newcastle are, well, for me, obviously your knowledge is far more than mine, but they are far and away the best side in that championship. And if they don't win it, then they want their arses slapped, because they just are cut above, really are. And it really brought it home to me that there's 2 sides of that size in the second tier of English football now, which is quite the stat when you think about it. You think back to the glory days of both clubs. The fact that they're down there is quite eye-opening. But fair play to Rafa Benitez's men. He's got something going there, and they were very impressive, I thought. So there you are. You've given me the championship bug. And we should give a shout, of course, to Josh Daw, who we'll mention a bit later on as well. But his Brighton side drew 1-1 on Friday night with Aston Villa, and that was another close-fought game. I watched quite a lot of that, actually. It's quite a good game, I thought. And Nat, our other friend of the pod, her Sheffield Wednesday side, you say 1-1 draw with Fulham, was it, in the end? Also
drew. Yes. It's strange. All 4 of us in that pod midweek all saw our teams draw this week.
That's very true. What a weird world.
And 3 of them all 1-1.
I was just going to say, if only yours was 1-1, it would have been a complete set. So clearly we are jinxed. But okay, so that's where we are championship-wise. We are just going to very quickly, before we get your boss and dross of the week, because I thought I'd bring that back for a change, just going to very quickly dip all the way down to the conference for particularly for our overseas listeners. You might not be aware that this creature exists, but deep below the Football League, or the EFL as it should be named, is the National League. There's the Premier Division and North and South below there. We're gonna stick to the Premier Division because that's the one where teams could come up into the Football League from. And I just want to have a quick look at what's going on down there, because there's a lot of clubs people won't be familiar with. There was a top-of-the-table clash this weekend as Forest Green Rovers, who came into the game top of the league. They were actually 9 points clear at the start of play against Lincoln City, who were second. And all seemed to be going well for the home side. Doidge and Marsh Brown had got them 2-0 up on 65 minutes, but Woodyard got one back for Lincoln City on 68. And then the most incredible finish to the game with less than a minute on the clock. Both Lincoln City centre-halves came up for strikes to earn Lincoln the victory. Waterforce, a great name, and Raggett, an equally good name, with the winner deep in stoppage time. So from 2-1 down going into stoppage time, they won the game 3-2. Really good game of football, and well worth looking up, I would suggest. Tranmere Rovers, who a lot of people will be familiar with, excuse me, they are up to third They got a win this weekend over Braintree Town, put my teeth in, with a 1-0 victory away from home. So they are level on points with Lincoln City now. So those two, six points adrift of Forest Green. Dagenham and Redbridge, Rush, you'll be familiar with that name. They only just dropped out of the Football League recently. They beat York City, who I think, was it York that had the McNamara issue? I think it was Jackie McNamara saying that if he didn't win, he would walk away, and then he didn't, then he did.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, so they've got Gary Mills in charge there now, and things are not getting any better for York. It's another defeat for them. So Dagenham and Redbridge in the playoff positions, as are Barrow, who beat my beloved Taunton Town in midweek. Boo. They beat Solihull Moors, and they are fifth. And you've got Dover Athletic, Gateshead, Boreham Wood, Macclesfield Town, and Aldershot in the top 10. Eastleigh, who of course beat Tim Sherwood's Swindon Town, or is it Tim Sherwood's Swindon Town? Who knows? They are 11th in the conference, and then down the bottom you've got some quite big names there. Wrexham 14th, Maidstone United 17th, Torquay United 18th, York City down in 21st, and then bottom in those bottom positions, York occupy the top of the bottom positions, as it were. Braintree Town, North Ferriby, and Guiseley are down the bottom. So it's well worth, particularly if you live in the UK and if you have access to the football, to the lower divisions for the Football League, it's well worth watching the National League and just keeping up with some of the games there. Some of the pitches are terrible, some of the standard isn't the best, but it's a really passionate league, and you do get the odd cracking game. So give it a look. And I'm actually going to ask you a question which has come in. Funnily enough, from our very own Josh Dorr. He wanted to ask a question, so I'm going to ask you, Ross. And it is about Tim Sherwood and Swindon. And it simply is, how long do Swindon leave it before removing their manager now that it looks like he's lost the team? Maybe you can explain a little bit about what's going on down there, because not all of our listeners will know, of course, what the situation is.
Well, we barely know. It's an absolute. Well, I can't use the word I was about to use there, so let's not. So what's happened essentially is that Tim Sherwood has been moved in as a quote unquote director of football, but he will be, and he has been, involved in training the team, putting out the team, and putting out the starting 11, taking training, doing the team talks. That's the one I was looking for. And he has been on the touchline in the past couple of weeks as well. The manager is still there. Apparently they're meant to be working together. It looks an awful lot like Tim Sherwood is the one that's kind of taking the reins from him and doing it all for him. But he's still meant to be a director of football, whereas to me he looks more like a co-manager. And I can't even think of the name of the guy that's currently managing Swindon Town, because it just seeped away as soon as Tim Sherwood went there. So it's all a very strange balance and a very strange mix at the moment with Swindon. The impression I get is that the rumoured Red Bull takeover is still under debate and is still in discussions. That the feeling I get is that he was put in so that when Red Bull take over, they can immediately move him into the managerial position. At the same time, would you trust him? At the moment, he got knocked out by Eastleigh 3-1, very comprehensive, and this weekend they got thumped 4-0 away at Rochdale. So, it's a crazy one with Swindon at the moment, although it's always been crazy with Swindon, especially the past couple of years with Di Canio and subbing off goalkeepers after 20 minutes and all the rest of it that came with it. So, yeah, I don't know what the Tim Sherwood situation is. As to how you fix it and whether you let the manager go, yeah, I think the manager should walk away. I think he'd be well within his right to say, you know what, this isn't what I signed up for. Luke Williams is in charge of Swindon Town. If he has any hope of making it in the game, then either say, right, I'm going to step back and I'll be a coach or an assistant manager and I'll listen to Tim Sherwood, which would be quite embarrassing for him, I think, under the circumstances. Or you say, you know what, this isn't worth my time, and leave and let Tactics Tim do his thing, because at the moment it's not looking good. That the balance just isn't right. You don't know if it's a tactical issue or if it's an issue behind the scenes, if he's lost the dressing room, if Tim Sherwood's saying one thing and Williams is saying another. You just don't know. So if I was Williams, I'd be looking to move on, or at least stepping away and saying, right, this isn't for me. But yeah, it's bizarre. There were rumours that he was going to go sign for QPR, and now he's at Swindon Town. And it's almost like he's saying, no, it's my club, and just pulling toys away from all the other children. So, strange situation at Swindon.
Yeah, good way of putting it. I like that. Good question as well, Josh. And yeah, that's as good a segue as any to your boss and dross of the week. Then I have a sneaky suspicion who you're going to go with both. But who's your dross of the week? Would you say?
It was tough until I remembered the Championship. and Rob Green. Like I say, 20 mistakes since 2012, leading directly to goals, and that was a pretty poor one that he made today. So because I can't think of anyone else that had a particularly bad weekend, I'm giving it to Rob Green for that.
Fair enough. And your boss, a slightly surprising one, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, there's plenty of good options for it this week. I'm going to give it to Victor Anichebe, who I think is still working with bruised or cracked or whatever ribs, and was brilliant last weekend. It was even better this weekend. A fantastic goal as well. He scored the second one. So I'm going to give it to him, even though I think it's all in vain and Sunderland are doomed. But yeah, it was tough to pick an outstanding performer from this weekend. But I think it's got to go to Anichebe.
Yep, absolutely, and of course it is always your choice, so you can pick whoever you like. Why don't you tell our listeners about something we did the other night, just before we sign off for another week, because we recorded a little podcast, didn't we?
Yeah, if you're into your EFL or especially a championship, then we had a couple of really, really nice guests on. Is it Josh and Nat, the Brighton and Sheffield Wednesday fans?
Best ones.
They came on to have a little natter about their clubs and the current state of the championship. Some very interesting insight that obviously I don't get to be a part of because I'm not in the championship anymore. So yeah, it was a very interesting podcast. If you're into your championship football, then do go and give it a listen.
Absolutely, that is available, of course, via our SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, website, you name it. All the usual podcatchers you can find that when it's still available. It's got some very good feedback, some high listening figures as well. So there's obviously a lot of you out there that enjoy your championship. So do give it a listen.
Don't be modest though, Kris. You had a very good podcast in the week yourself.
I tried. I fulfilled a lifelong ambition, actually, I say lifelong, footballing lifelong, I should say, ambition of interviewing the magnificent Andy Brassel, who I've admired for many, many years. I know, Ross, his work was new to you, and I think you enjoyed the pod as well. So, yeah, I got to interview Andy. It was really, really good experience. I learned an awful lot just in 50 or so minutes of talking to Andy. When he said he only had half an hour, I got him on there for nearly an hour. So I'll take that as a personal triumph. But I think by the end of it, I think even Andy was sort of just in his element, just relaxed and enjoying it. So it was a great pleasure to interview Andy. And if you haven't listened to that one, please do. He's a very, very knowledgeable chap. Has worked for some very, very big companies. Currently still works, in fact, for Talk Sport. So do give him a listen. It was really, really, really good fun. So
highly recommend as well, because I listened to it and he was a very interesting study. And keep this under your hats, but he has inspired me to take on a new European league, which I'm not going to reveal which until I've actually learned about it. But yeah.
Ooh, you tease. I think I can guess which one. But
Yeah,
I like it. No, sadly. Yes, do that. And of course, if you are a fan of a championship side, or indeed a Premier League side, and you want to come on our podcast, particularly this particular podcast, which focuses on the English game, indeed, then give us a shout. If you've got a headset and you've got a decent firing internet, then we'll have you on. We're not fussy,
or at least one, because I've got a good headset but awful internet. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, if you want to come on and have a little chat to us, then drop us a little message, and we'll see if we can make it happen. We're not fussy here. As long as you've got a brain and you're happy to discuss things about a club, then we'll have a little chat with you. So do get in touch. Right, that'll do us for another week then. It's been a great pleasure to bring this to you as usual, to our loyal listeners. We appreciate each and every one of them. Keep that feedback coming. As usual, you can follow us at the FH Podcast, and as we say, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube are the best places to find our work, or indeed our website, where you can find blogs and bits and bobs there as well. We're not huge on the blogging side, but anyone who writes for us, we will post your work. So if you want to do that, get in touch.
If it makes any difference whatsoever, I'm desperately trying to think of something to write about, because I would like to excuse me, I would like to start contributing some blogs since I am trained in writing.
Yes, indeed, and of course your work will be published as well, Ross. So feel free, and I could exclusively reveal. Actually, do you want a breaking news?
Oh yeah, we've been on a hell of a streak here the last 2 minutes. So yeah, let's have some more news.
We have hot off the press breaking news. At 33 years of age, I am about to write a book.
Wow.
So it's not an autobiography, because quite frankly, nobody would buy that.
Is it a colouring book?
Yeah, it's dot to dot, with dots included. No, I'm going to write a book on Paris Saint-Germain. So it's in the very, very early stages at the moment, but as yet untitled. But I find it fascinating to look at the transformation of that club, particularly since the investment has come in, and looking at the history of the club. So yeah, very, very early stages, but coming soon to a very poor bookshop near you in about 10 years' time. My debut book, so keep your eye on that. I was inspired by interviewing our guests today. In fact, I interviewed Dominic Bliss today for an upcoming interview, and of course Andy. So yes, there we go. It's been something I've been planning for a little while, and hopefully it's going to happen. So there you go. There's some breaking news for you. Right, I can't think of any better place to leave it than that. We will be back on the regular pod tomorrow. Tom is missing because it's his birthday, so I'll take this opportunity to wish him a very happy birthday in advance. But John and Drew, barring anything dramatic happening, will be with me tomorrow. And we'll be covering all your usual Liga, La Liga, Serie A and Bundesliga action. Lots of big games across Europe this weekend. So we'll be covering all of those in the regular pod tomorrow. And we have a satchel on Thursday. I'm not sure who's going to be on with me at the moment, but I'm sure I'll have a guest by then. And best of luck to you, Ross. Home, is it this week?
We are away to Sparta Prague, who I think I'm right in saying are unbeaten at home, unless they did some damage to that today.
Oof, that's a toughie. So we wish you all the best in that game, and we'll of course be covering it on the satchel. And then you and I will be back next Sunday to go through all the English actions. So thank you very much for your time as usual, Ross.
No, pleasure as ever.
And thank you as ever to our loyal listeners. And we'll be back. And we'll be talking more football. So until then, enjoy West Brom and Burnley if you can. And we called it here first for Thriller. Till then, keep your beard strong and your glasses trendy. We've been the Football Hipsters. We'll speak to you very soon.